good like lightning or ignite talk. Ignite
Ooh.
lightning. I don't know. And that is, I was, it involves everyone's favorite topics: home networking,
Of course.
fiber, dogs, children asking you why the Wi-Fi doesn't work, all of that
Mhm.
kind of. So, that one day earlier this week, the Wi-Fi wasn't working. It was mysterious. It was a situation where the Wi-Fi was up, and then also the actual, you get. I've got my own Wi-Fi access points, and then you get the one that you get from your internet provider,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
I just make them separate, and I don't really ever let people use the internet provider one. Let is too strong a word, but it's just confusing, right? And then, I mean, with how the explanation goes, you get to the point where you're like, just because the Wi-Fi is up doesn't mean the internet is up, right? So you
Oh
don't want to
yeah, yeah.
complicate it. That's a whole big thing. So, anyways, and then it's also further complicated because on my laptop, it can use the laptop or the Brandon connection, the Ethernet. And
Yes. I
so,
love
like,
that.
sometimes one doesn't work and sometimes the other, so I never really know. And then it used to be, this is like it's interesting networking topology, I think, review is what they call this. It used to be my wired connection was on the internet provider network because that was plugged into the internet provider device.
Straight.
But the Wi-Fi was connected to my own Wi-Fi, which are on different whatevers those are.
Yes.
Right? They're different things. And so that was fun. Anyways, that's there, but not here. And so the internet wasn't working, but the Wi-Fi was on. And so I restarted all the stuff, right? And it still wasn't working. I looked at some other things, and I finally went over. And you'll remember when I said got the fiber turned on, the fiber setup, there's this fiber optic cable that comes from the floor, and then it goes into this little Huawei box, which is why I'm getting better rankings on TikTok. And then this Huawei box goes into the actual like TP-Link, whatever, airplane
Sure.
wing thing. And the airplane wing was on. So it's very mysterious. And then, I looked at the Huawei box and it seemed fine. And then I realized the Huawei box isn't just powered by the energy coming from the fiber cable like I thought. There's a plug that goes into it because it's this little tiny box
Sure.
Mhm.
that converts from fiber to Ethernet. And so the plug just wasn't in it. And I looked around under there and there was a plug, and I plugged it back in and everything was fine. And then a few days later, the internet went out again. In fact, this morning I was on the beginning of a Zoom call with one of my coworkers, Whitney, and all of a sudden there was that like noise in my speakers, and the internet went out. And I went over, and sure enough, it had been unplugged again. And then I finally did some diagnosis, and I realized I've got all of the internet stuff underneath the couch over here. I think you call it a settee, a little love seat sort of thing. And it wasn't well organized because it's not a data center, right? So it's
Right.
just kind of all under there. And sometimes the dog likes to go underneath there and rest. And the dog every now and then will try to like make it more comfortable and like scratch around at the carpet. And I have not seen this in action, but it's led me to conclude that the dog messed up my internet stuff. And I was telling Whitney this, and she was like, "Oh, right. I'll have to remember that next time I'm in a boring meeting. I'll just be like, oh, the dog unplugged my internet." And I think that's a tip for everyone out there: is if you want to get out of a boring meeting, you can use that big elaborate story and tell people that the dog just turned off your internet.
See, here in Australia, we have shorthand for that. We're just like NBN's up. Boom. Everyone agrees, nods their heads knowingly.
What does that mean? What did you say? What?
NBN, National Broadband Network.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, even better. Yeah, that's right. You want to live in a place where, well, that's what we have here in the US too. You want to live in a place where that has this spotty internet coverage. Like, yeah, Spectrum's down. No one would ever argue that.
Yeah.
I guess over in the Netherlands, Cote, your internet's so good, you have to come up with like, legit excuses. Like the dog,
Yeah,
the dog ate
legit excuses.
Legit excuses.
That's right. Yeah. So, this, in addition to that hot tip for getting out of a Zoom or a Chime meeting, like I was thinking, should I do something about that? Like, and if so, because I think the way it previously worked was that I just had all of the wires underneath the carpet, and
Mhm.
it was fine.
Well,
And
you
I don't know,
haven't.
is that sufficient?
Have you not been considered moving up to like some type of small UPS? Yeah, that's what
Oh.
I've got. That way, it's just like, I guess again, maybe your infrastructure's so good you don't have to deal with it, but it's just like, any brownouts. It's sort of,
Well,
it's just nice to just
yeah,
survive.
yeah, because Brandon also gets to blame ERCOT.
Yeah, I have that. I guess I have all these other issues. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Every once in a while, I get a little brown
Living in a
out.
third
Like,
world country, yeah.
just want to
Well,
put a little UPS in front of it, and they'll just protect it. And so I don't know. Also keeps the family happy because that way it's sort of like when it just flickers, everything keeps running. So that would be one improvement.
maybe also, Matt, you can help me like put together some Raspberry Pi thing. We can use some of the we were just talking about the finances for the podcast. Maybe we can use some of the leftover money this year, and you can get a little Raspberry Pi thing that has 3 network connections, and it switches over to whichever one is the best as a failsafe. And then I'll also just get like a Starlink dish on my desk over here, and I'll have that set up.
Oh,
So that there's not a dependency on the under the couch data center. So in case something goes on over there, I'll have the Starlink thing about 2 feet from it, and then it'll just swap over. Thanks to my my Tri networking redundancy box.
All right. Well, quick aside to you, because you're kind of joking about it. So I won't out I know it's a listener and I know who they are. So I will not out them. But like over, a few weeks ago, we had like just a spontaneous, like, I don't know, 6-hour internet outage. Spectrum just went down, like most of Texas and half the United States. Right. So a friend in the neighborhood listens to the podcast, had prepared for this, and they do have Starlink. They have it multi-homed, and they had it flip over automatically to Starlink. And they were talking about how it's a gratuitous and expensive backup, but like his wife work at home, and I think in his kids, I think summertime. So it was like, yeah, that's how he's gotten to the point of like, yeah. And at first you read it, you're like, that's crazy. And having lived here for a while, I'm like, no, like it's sort of like,
what's the threshold for that though? Yeah. What's the threshold for deciding that you need a second internet provider? Like,
so basically I think it's
how many 9s and 7s are we talking about here?
I guess we probably have here 3. I would say we have 3 reasonably long outages a year. And I think it's like, I have to look up what Starlink is. I think it's $60 a month or $50 a month. I don't know what the startup cost is. So it's like, I don't know, let's call it for $500 a year. Is it worth having backup internet for especially if you do it by hour? Because it's like some of these can be short, but we've had a couple like reasonably long outages. So I don't know. Right. It's an interesting question. Like if it's
but I did off your phone.
You can obviously
that's our backup strategy. It's phone.
You can tether off your phone if you're in the right. Obviously, you're a little bit limited. Like I think he is also limited by just the geography of like getting a good cell phone signal. So, I don't know. So I don't know. Maybe that's the future. I think the future should be a whole home UPS, something you just plug in. It's just like, I just want everything like a home battery. And then, maybe it is sort of like some secondary internet source, or we could just invest in like making the infrastructure better all the time. But I've given up on that idea.
Yeah, so it's just like the Powerwall Starlink combo pack.
Right. It just becomes more and more where you're just like, how many more things can I possibly, buy? So,
well, I'm looking at the Starlink pricing here, and there's a residential, which is 50. That's true. Well, this is in euros, since I'm in the Netherlands, but it looks like you can get something called a roam, and I assume by its name that means you can roam it around. You can mobile regional, it says, and that is 59 euros, I think, for unlimited, and then you've got to buy the 250 euro dish or whatever.
Okay, and so there's a little bit extra to get the little dish going. So.
But then, basically, if you did that, maybe you wouldn't need to buy, when you travel abroad, you wouldn't need extra service. You would just be like, excuse me, can I plug in my satellite dish?
I like it.
But you would always have a, you go on vacation, you can bring your satellite connection, everything. I think it'd be great. I don't think I'm going to pay for that though. But it does seem cool. I think that's also the kind of thing that if you have like some some excess money and you're into computers, it's just like, entertaining way to
Yeah,
spend
yeah,
your
why
money.
not? Little home project, right?
That's me. No, it's not me.
Well, speaking of entertaining ways to spend money, now several years ago, in fact, in 2021, it looks like, I think Brandon and Matt, they were talking about chips, and I was probably asleep at the time that was going on. But Brandon asked Matt, he was like, "What would you rather run, Intel or VMware?" And I think it's been a long time since then.
Ooh.
That's 3 years about. And I think you wanted to run Intel, right, Matt? And I think what we should do is we should do a review. Did you make the right decision? How did these last 3 years go?
Well, so before we jump into that,
let's replace Matt with Pat Gelsinger.
hold on a second. I think a couple of things. So this episode was, if you want to go back and listen to the segment, it's Software Defined Talk episode 281, and it was published on January 15th, 2021. Kote, you were on the show, but at that point, because it was kind of close to home, you sort of just set that segment out. So you actually listened in and then came in. So Matt, I just want to remind you. So
what did I say?
You and I discussed like, hey, is this a good idea? So one, it must have been right after college football playoff, because I guess we spoke a lot about college football along with it. So we said, you said, Matt, you said that he should make sure he's well compensated. So I think check.
Check. Yeah.
We talked about that he was a college football coach returning to his alma mater with a huge contract.
Yep.
For deep cut college football fans at that time. You mentioned Jim Harbaugh, and then we both joked like, "Oh, that's not a good comparison." Now, since then, Jim Harbaugh has gone on to win the national title and even to go on to make more money by leaving to go to the Chargers. So that was, I don't know, that was an interesting. I guess we got that one wrong. You said the first thing that he should do was to fix manufacturing, and then you went on. I would say that did not happen. That's what I'm going to say. I don't think that happened.
But they pivoted to Foundry. I mean, they're emphasizing Foundry, but they're still playing catch up. And they got a huge check from the United States government from the CHIPS Act.
We did not suggest that. Now you suggested, Matt, I'm putting this one on you because you did say this. You said that they should potentially outsource some of their fabrication to TSMC. That is 100% to my knowledge not happened. That is like the antithesis.
I thought they did.
Did they? I don't think they did any of that.
Maybe,
so I wasn't sure on that.
Maybe I'm wrong.
All right. Then you also said, now I think I threw out to you, I was like, well, what about Microsoft? They should probably do something more with Microsoft. You said Microsoft had mostly moved on to Azure. I think that's 100% correct. And that Intel needed to give Microsoft some type of carrot to get Microsoft's love again. I think that's a good idea. And I think that 100% did not happen. Right?
Right.
I said, I don't, tell me if you think this is right. I said that Gelsinger was coming into Intel at the right time, as their expectations were very low at Intel, and he was leaving VMware on a high. So I think I'm 100% correct in retrospect on the leaving VMware on a high. I think he went out at like peak VMware. With this past couple of weeks, I do not think the expectations were low enough, because it seems like people are really upset with Intel now. So I think I missed on that. Would you say that's true?
Yeah. I mean, I think except for the carrot for Microsoft, Intel followed the playbook I laid out. And a quick check. Article from last week said they're cutting 15% more of their staff and outsourcing more to TSMC.
Okay, so they have been doing it. All right.
Yeah, so they have been doing that. So pretty much, I said they're gonna run their own fabs. They've tried to get more people onto Intel's foundries, trying to kind of spin that off as a secondary business. They have outsourced to TSMC for their high-end stuff because they can't do it themselves. And they have just continued to fall farther and farther behind AMD, ARM, and now RISC-V.
Okay. Now we also said, my opinion was that he should take a strong look at the product roadmap before taking the job, kind of like a recruiting. And then we talked a little bit more about like a recruiting class. I said you really needed to have a strong product roadmap if you're going to take the job. You actually, Matt, said take the job either way. You said there's work to be done either way. You either take the job and do the work, or you take the job and execute the roadmap. So I don't know. I guess he took the job. I
think he took the job, obviously, and
the roadmap was not good, though. I think that was. I think we kind of called that. The roadmap was not good.
I think what we didn't get was how gashed they were going to get on AI.
True.
They were coming back around to GPUs. Yeah. They put out their A100, A300, or whatever models they're called, and they were not super well received. They were called respectable budget grade GPUs, which but AMD upped their game in that aspect, and and NVIDIA continues to crank out at the gaming computer level that stuff, but then the AI stuff, just Intel is a distant third, I guess.
Yeah, by a long shot. So, well, the final thing, the final football references what we mentioned is I sort of said, is this more like Les Miles? At the time he was at Kansas, he left disgrace, and you said it was more like a Mac Brown going to University of North Carolina. He was going to like the ship. So I don't know.
Hey,
I think
North Carolina's probably happier than they were before he got there.
I agree. Probably, I guess you're kind of right on that. And then finally, I actually asked you the question. I said, hey, I gave you the option at the time. I said, would you rather be, if all the money was equal, would you rather be the CEO of VMware or Intel? And you said, take the Intel job. It was sort of like the big time job. When it comes up, you got to take it. So I don't know, Cote. So, you sort of opted out of this conversation at the time for obvious reasons. But now in retrospect, do you have any thoughts on like Gelsinger at Intel? Like, would you have said anything at the time? You can second guess us, if you will. What would you have said at the time, and what would you say now?
Well, I think going back to where you work most of your career and you have deep expertise, that seems pretty good on the on paper, and I mean, we'll see with reality. Revitalizing old companies, always a problem, but he I don't know, he did a lot of 86 stuff or whatever what it was. Like I think
a lot of 86 stuff.
I don't know anything about chips, but I think if you can tell that he really likes chips and enjoyed it a lot. So I think it's kind of like, you got to go back to what you enjoy. Now, I was thinking as you were going through that, Matt Ray, I was thinking, so when it comes to the the annual bonus payout of alternative timeline, Matt Ray, I feel like maybe I'm one of the board members on the compensation committee, but while I was an expert, an expert executive, maybe of marketing or operations at the global barbecue sauce conglomerate, like I don't really know how to value missing out on AI or not. Was that possible? Is there something like, is this something that I should be worried about on the compensation committee? With my two other members here, like how do I judge that? Because it also seems like there was this problem with hyperscalers a while ago, and then you had this thing. But like, if I talk to my peers from the computer industry on this podcast, and they're like, in 2021, if I had said AI is going to be a big deal, I think everyone would have been like, you're stupid. Like, it's always going to be a big deal. Let me tell you about AI.
That's why NVIDIA is ahead, right? Because they invested in it 10 years before anybody else did.
When it wasn't cool.
Well, there was an article, just to give you, I guess, more hindsight bias. There was an article where Intel had the opportunity to invest in OpenAI and work closely with them, and they passed on it. Which, I mean, again, hindsight bias would say for sure you do it. I think at the time it was probably easy to write off. Like many of the startups that came to them at the time, I'm sure they get these pitches like all the time. It was easy to pass on. I think the only thing you could say kind of contrary to it would just be, hey, is this like an existential kind of bet, right? Like if these if this gets huge, like we could be, behind by a huge margin, which they are. So that would always be the argument to be like, fine, waste the $20 million. Like, cause I don't think it was that much money at the time, right? Like waste the money there because it's just an option on the future, right? It's just like in that, because now all the hyperscalers have basically done that to this point. So that would probably be the biggest place where you could say they missed. But again, it's hard. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think nobody was predicting it, but maybe that's the whole thing, is like to always have a bet at the table just in case. Right. And you can go back to like when Intel passed on making the processors for the iPhone, right? That was the other one. So there's been a bunch of like, when you write them all down, it is a lot of misses. Now that was before Todd Gelsinger, so that's not his watch, but it is.
That.
I guess you go from being, you know, a very, very successful company to a company that's kind of like, you know, slowly declining.
And then breaking out of alternate timeline here. I wonder if, well, I wonder if you looked at OpenAI as it is now, and then you are asked to like invest money in them, like if like, because they are a pretty crazy company.
Yeah.
Like, and with the nutso structure, and then obviously they show all sorts of strange instability. I'm doing the what was that service I said we would offer, the don't buy it service.
Right.
What, we'll call it the Fantastic Mr. Fox Badger service, where the advice they're always giving you is not to buy it. And like, not only are they kind of nuts, but they keep basically like releasing vaporware that anyone never uses. Sounds really cool, and then it never materializes. So it seems like, you know, I wonder if that would be a good company to invest in now, or it's sort of like up to its neck in potential, and you just got to like let it ride out. There's no more like, I don't know. It seems like it would be a strange.
Well, I think only a company like Microsoft and the largest investors could do it, right? At this point, it's sort of like if you're playing at that level,
sure,
you know, I think but everybody else, and I think, but you know, I guess to be fair, it's like, you know, here we are at episode 480, so maybe we should, you know, almost make a little prediction now. It's like, well, you know, we could be talking about NVIDIA at its peak, right? Like it looks like obviously they messed, like at this moment, it looks like Intel's made nothing but the wrong decisions. Now, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit in a second. Like we are reading a lot about people wondering about the future impact of AI. Will it deliver on some type of like, you know, a true
arena bubble?
Arena bubble and things like that. So, you know, I think I even mentioned, I may have said this on the Cloudcast, so I'll just repeat it here. Like, you know, maybe this is for Matt Ray Dalio, his portfolio. It's like, if you want a real YOLO trade here, it's like, do you go long Intel and short NVIDIA, right? And you're like, again, not investment advice, don't do that. But I'm just saying, like, if you really, you know, if you really believe, right, this would be the time, right, to get in on it. So it'd be interesting to, you know, if someone, I'm sure someone's going to do it out there. So make sure you screenshot it when you make your trade. And then in 10 years, you can go back and be like, and show us the receipts. Be like, I listened to you, and I'm a billionaire now.
Yeah, or show us that the market can be irrational longer than you can be soluble. Right? Yeah. I mean, that's what this is. It's like I mean, this is completely irrational. Do not take this as investment advice, but I believe that NVIDIA probably has the resources in it to right the ship. But if they're rewarded quarter to quarter,
NVIDIA has the
Intel, has the resources to like fix their, you know, their engineering has missed some cycles, and you know, but do they stay down forever? I mean, you would hope not, but that's up to like, you know, leadership and hiring, you know, product and engineering to get that right. The sales muscle is still there. Like they'll sort that stuff out. They just can't sell inferior products right now, but like you would think that they could probably write that eventually. The foundry business, I don't know the financials on it, but it probably, when you look at it from the outside, I bet it looks that like, you know, if you put in enough capital into this market, into this field, you can get a healthy return as long as, you know, you're keeping up with the Joneses, which they probably are. It's just, it takes a lot of money to get into that. And then, you know, AMD, they're on a good tear. NVIDIA, sure, they're sold out for the next 3 years or whatever, but you know, if we're in a bubble, things could come down fast, you know. So I think I'm definitely not telling you to invest in Intel. And I'm just saying don't short NVIDIA, but I feel like things will slowly, like NVIDIA will lose a little steam, Intel will get their feet under them. let's check back in 3 years and see how wrong I was.
All right. All right. I like it. Maybe that'd be like episode 600. We'll make sure to bring it up.
I don't We're like Madison soluble.
That's right. Imagine. But I don't. This brings us to another thing you put in here. I think it was, we've been talking about. There's been a lot written about, is AI too expensive for hyperscalers? And there's this article, and you had a nice comment about it. It was just sort of like, big tech fails to convince Wall Street that AI is paying off. And I think your idea was like, well, just think about how upset investors would be if they were doing nothing with that money. So like, what do you think?
Exactly.
Like, what should I don't know. How do you? Maybe the question is like, how do you make Wall Street happy? Can you make Wall Street happy in this situation?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the idea of the was it Jordan? What's his name? Writing the article or expressed by some analyst. But as you were saying, right there, my from reading this article about why there was some I don't know, financial analysts were very curious about capital expenditures for AI, and their stress was that it's not paying off fast enough. Like, where's our AI money after we bought all these machines? After you bought all these machines, and of course, the executives talking on these calls, they have to be polite, but what you want to answer them is like, that's not how reality works. Like I can't like build a data center in 3 months and then all of a sudden like pay it off with this thing that just barely works and exists. So there is sort of like, there's an absurdity to like, if you weren't doing anything in AI, just like we kind of just, or you weren't successful in AI, just like we were kind of saying about Intel, you would get punished a huge way. And then all of a sudden you're spending all this money to do AI stuff, to build out the big data centers that have huge moats that are hard to cross competitively. And, you're doing too much. You shouldn't be AIing that much. Slow down your AIing, the people say. It sounds like. Now, that said, like, who knows, like, the reality of all of that. But it does, I think there's a broader thing we probably talk about most every week of just like, I just wanted to summarize articles for me better. And like, I don't know how the way that it actually like is not that great at summarizing articles is fueling like, billions of dollars of value and things like that here and there.
That's not going to give you a 20% return of, slightly better summaries.
But it might make me slightly more productive, but that productivity doesn't translate into dollars.
No. Well, I think, I feel like AI is like it's in this like opposite version of like, blockchain and Bitcoin, because AI has like immediate consumer, if you will, usefulness, right? Like I use it all the time. Just all these things you just said, like summarize things, helps me like create little scripts. And then like, I love it. I think it's great. Now, and so there is immediate use by people. Now, is that profitable so far? Definitely not. Like, it's definitely not like doing this. There isn't a business model around. So that's just interesting, right? It's just interesting. Like there is consumer utility. It's just like, there isn't any profits. Whereas I felt like the whole Bitcoin and, blockchain hype was like, at least for me, it was like, I don't know. There is no consumer utility that I actually use or do anything with. There's just people speculating in on the investment. Right. And it's like, so it's just interesting. It's almost like inverted, right? Like the different things.
Yeah.
So as a consumer, it's like, yeah, sure. Great. It's like, I don't know. I almost feel like streaming's like this. All the streaming services is like, sure. I paid $20 for Peacock for a year, like 2 months ago. I'm like, fantastic. Great Olympic experience. Watched a million things. It was awesome. And I'm sure they're losing tons of money, but I don't care. Like, I was just great. The Olympics are on. Like, I mean, it's like, what can I say? I don't work there. I don't care if NBC, Peacock, like, go bankrupt. It doesn't bother me at all. Someone like watching it. I love it.
My problem.
I'm just like, I love the service. So it's like, I don't know. So I don't know. As an investor, I'm sure that's very like hard to get your head around. People love this, but there's no money, right? And it's like,
you're making me think something there that something I've encountered that maybe this is an issue is like, so yeah, this is like a classic internet technology problem where consumers start using it and it works really well, like email, instant messaging, cloud computing, like individuals are consumers. But then the big giant enterprises are just like deathly afraid of it. Right. And so like, I only use AI stuff responsibly when it comes to professional stuff. But like, if I actually did have the full AI, battle platform available for like doing my corporate work, it would probably be great. But of course I don't, right? We use G Suite, and of course that's not even turned on because who knows what explosion of feathers was going to happen if you like do that. But like, so it seems like most of the textual work and work that AI could be helpful with that I do, I can't use AI for it, and that's because of like policy, which is fine. Like, I'm not saying it's wrong or bad, but like maybe once most all of the big enterprises are like, oh right, like whenever the big switch up was from on-premises email to Gmail and Office 365, I'm sure, I don't know if that was accounted for in Matt Ray Dialio's portfolio, but that was probably one of the most underappreciated shifts in like business productivity, the management of it, right? And so similarly, maybe one day when you can just like willy-nilly use your AI stuff on whatever you have, like then we'll start realizing all this wonderful productivity outcome stuff. Because there's like in-house AI stuff that people have, but so far those seem not great. Versus like being able to access the entire I don't even know what you would call it, power of the AI
experience.
Yeah, like unless you're working at that like Edward Norton startup, like I don't think you could just have ChatGPT make a presentation to show the board like that. I mean, you could, but that would like not be responsible because you wouldn't be following policy. And like, you couldn't have it like analyze, read your email for you, summarize. If you went to like, let's say charitably, you go to like 5 meetings a week, and you couldn't like make a transcript of that in Zoom and then send it off to ChatGPT to summarize, because I'm sure that's against policy, and on and on and on, right? So all of these like enterprise productivity things you're going to get, I'm pretty sure there's like a security person, a CISO somewhere, who's like, not today, like just no, because terrible things will happen. What are those terrible things? Oh, they're bad. See you later.
Don't ask questions. They're bad.
Yeah. So that maybe that's what we need to wait for, a change in policy. We need some thought leadership pieces that are about, make shadow AI in the light AI, just take full advantage.
And I do think, maybe the Apple thing is will lead the way or something, or, Microsoft's doing as well. It's like maybe another way to say what you were just saying was like, when these models can run locally on your machine and they're as good as the, if you will, the giant models in the cloud, then that's kind of what, the enterprise is very comfortable with that. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll let you install that on your computer and you can run it. Everything's local. And it's like, there you go, that'll work out. And that may be that may ultimately be the thing, the way that it has to be used inside the enterprise. Because you're right. I mean, I don't know about these, these days of like, trying to get it, try to get all the security people happy and being able to do stuff and being able to access the cloud stuff. It's like, it's difficult to navigate that today for sure.
And that's why this becomes a purview of like the established big players, is because they know how to get it through the enterprise sales channels into the hands of, us mortals. It's up to, if you're a small startup trying to break into the enterprise space, it's always been hard. And now you're talking about some crazy technology that's going to infect everything. Let's wait till we get it spoon fed to us by Microsoft.
Yeah. And so maybe that's what these investors are waiting on, is sort of like, maybe it'll be another quarter, maybe 2 or 3 quarters, when if you will, the NVIDIA profits are still high, but then they start to see that, okay, that shifts to Microsoft, Amazon, and GCP, because like now people are actually consuming it and doing something. Because I realize all the earnings calls say people are doing it, but you don't see it in the numbers. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with all that.
Well, they just keep running out of tokens in the free plan.
That's right, out of tokens again.
Yeah, you're reminding me of the old private cloud data gravity thing, and compute wants to go where the data is, which there's something to that, but it also seems like data gravity on private cloud is more like crushing, like it just seems to like ruin dreams occasionally. But I wonder if we'll enter this. I mean, there's scurrying around about this from here and there, but like maybe people will go dust off the old private cloud data gravity thing, start talking about AI goes where the data is, which I don't know.
Well, there's startups for that too, right? they're definitely on-prem AI startups.
I mean, I haven't studied this, but I feel like that in the cloud era before AI, that didn't necessarily. It wasn't so much that like workload stayed on private cloud because of the weight of the gravity. It just, I think people just didn't get around to moving them to public cloud. it was just more like, it was like cloud migration.
Never bet against inertia.
Yeah. Which has been great for many years of my career. So that's why I endorse inertia and not changing and doing nothing, being happy with what you have there. So speaking of that, now there was I came across this article as well, and I know several people did, and I wanted us to try to help some of our listeners kind of learn what are some ways that you should be profitably and in a good community spirit using LinkedIn, because I think it might be all that we have left after the implosion of Twitter. I still go look at Threads and Mastodon all the time, and I don't know. I think to me, Threads is like where Benedict Edwards, or where he posts.
Benedict Evans.
Yeah, who is Benedict Edwards? Did I make that up?
I don't think that's anyone. But
somebody we know.
We should check LinkedIn for that person. I bet there's someone on LinkedIn is like that.
Yeah, the Threads has a weird feel to it. Like it's almost like it's almost like what's the name of that furniture store, Design Within Reach, and you go in there and it's like a $2,000 chair, and you're like, this is not within reach. Like,
no, it's right over there. Just grab it.
Yeah. So Threads has this very like super fancy, like if IKEA had a designer label, that's like what it feels like Threads would be. And then the Mastodon people are all just like, I think they're like, it's like Matt Ray's crew over there. It's all the people who run home networks, and they're just like, they're always talking about the Fediverse and like very, very technical. And then I don't know what's going on over in Twitter. Twitter has like all the first generation DevOps people still hanging out over
Twitter's
there.
The clan rally.
But then there's LinkedIn, where like there's a lot going on over there, and every now and then there's something interesting. But in hearing myself talk through this, the thing about LinkedIn that's interesting is like there's still people there, like people like doing things. And maybe it's because LinkedIn is like the Facebook of the professional life, and if I were to use Facebook, I would see like people just hanging out doing people things. And so I only see that on LinkedIn. But I think there is an issue with LinkedIn that there's just, I don't know, there's too much like weird job posting stuff and professional posting. It's strange. I know, but this is so. I think that we've got an opportunity here. If we could somehow get this idea out that you should be a little less professional and posting about job stuff, and be a little bit more just like what's going on in your industry, talking about things, we could bring the old Twitter days back in LinkedIn.
There's some of that, but I think there's already plenty of people who are like, keep LinkedIn about employment, and people get bent out of shape when you're like, oh, I'm here's some pictures of my kids' graduation, and they're like, this is LinkedIn, that it doesn't have to do with your employment or me. And so so I think LinkedIn has some guardrails that people want it to stay more professional, and
that's fair.
There are people who are like rubbing up against those guardrails, and and then there are the other folks who are just like, stay in your lane. So I think I'm in the like, LinkedIn, stay in your lane. I'm not going to complain about it, but I don't.
We can refine the lane.
Yeah.
I'm with you on, and people in the chat are chiming in. It's like, I agree on the personal side. It's like, okay, that's really not the place for LinkedIn, right? But I do think highly, because I use LinkedIn, I like to see what's going on, and like certainly we promote the podcast on LinkedIn. It's like, I always just think though, if there's like a broad piece of advice that gives people, it's like, hey, post things that are like kind of related to your professional environment, your professional career, that are intended to be consumed by people outside your company, right?
Well, just
that to me is like the core thing. So like
the easy rule of thumb is, would you read it on your work laptop?
Right. And also too, but I just think it's sort of like something like, I think it's great. Actually, I like when people post like, I'm going to be at this conference, even stuff like, we got a big, here's fine with me, like post a case study. This is a case study. This is what's happening at work.
That's what it's there for.
All of that stuff is good. So I think it's both the personal stuff. And I also think it's sort of like what I'm going to call it, like the internal work stuff, right? Like congratulating your coworkers on a great offsite where you went to somewhere and you just met internally. It's like 100% not needed on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Like you can send an email to your, you can celebrate together, but it doesn't need to be on there. Cause that's the part where I think that it does. It's not,
it's there because that's recruiting to your company culture. I mean,
I don't know.
Your employer probably encourages that kind of stuff.
There's like a real, there's a real line though, I think, between recruiting and like, let's see how
retention.
Yeah.
I just think it's sort of like I don't want to say disingenuous.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just
a
saying
little. It could be too much, right? Because like everyone has, like, we know what a job is like, and it's, I don't know. I just think sometimes people are like overly promoting things to a point that like it's hard to believe the job is as portrayed as it is in there. And like, and if you're not really behind that statement, like, what are you doing? Are you, if you will, virtue signaling to like your boss or to the people at your company? Are you legitimately posting your thoughts? Because I think that stuff is very frustrating, I think, when I watch it. So that's why I would just say, like, outbound stuff that you genuinely believe in, post it. I don't think you need to do the messages where you're thanking everyone for the offsite. The sales kickoff ones are the ones that like get me the worst, right? The successful sales kickoff, it's like, I'm glad the sales team went somewhere, had a great time, did great presentations, and I'm glad you took pictures. None of that is actually selling, which I think is funny. Like, you just met, like, most of the time at sales kickoff, it's like, we need to spend time with our customers. We need to speak to our customers. We need to talk in their voice. Let me tell you, the customer does not care about your sales kickoff. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, that's an internal thing.
Yeah, but it's there for, like, a little bit of internal morale building. It's also to present a public, hey, look how humane our salespeople are. Would you like to buy from them? I mean, part of always be selling is always be marketing, right? So I think.
Right, but that's my whole thing. Marketing is about identifying a need a customer has and that they want to do. And no way does the customer have a need to hear about your great time in Las Vegas and where you went to have dinner and the fact that you all went to Top Golf and had a great time. Like, it's just completely unnecessary. And I think when people like believe, because I think the other thing I don't like that is like, people think like that's work. I'm doing a great job. Look, I've done such a great job this week. I've posted all of this stuff. It's like, no, you didn't accomplish it. Like, it may be important to you, but it's not important to the rest of the world. So don't post it.
There's got to be like some football wisdom about, like, some snappy saying about, like, when you're training, that's not playing the game.
Well, I would say
talking about practice.
Talking about practice. Allen Iverson. We should try this. Like, we're talking about practice. Like, let's not post the practice videos and be like, we're a Super Bowl champion. When you've won the game or there's a game to come watch or something to happen, that's great. Otherwise, you can keep it internally. You can send as many emails. You can have a whole Slack channel dedicated to how great sales kickoff was, posting memes and pictures and just getting each other pumped up. Like, I don't really want to see it. I don't need to see that on LinkedIn.
I think we've worked out. We've product managed. We're going to call it the Brandon filter, which is there's a filter in LinkedIn you can select and it says no sales kickoff content. That's
well, I've got further. I think about marketing. I mean, I'm just picking on that one because it's a popular one, but like, there's a lot of marketing offsites. There's a lot of PR, plans.
No offsite content. All right, we hear you.
It's I don't know. Write in if you think I'm wrong. If those enjoy it, find me in Slack. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I should find this content more compelling than it is.
Yeah. I mean, there's something in all that LinkedIn stuff. I just I don't know if it's the publishing or it's probably the consuming experience that's frustrating, right? Like, because as we were going through all these scenarios, I was thinking, like, marrying it up with the AI. It would be great if the AI just looked at all the crap and told me what was interesting. which, you know, that would be nice just to filter all that stuff out of there.
Well, the post that got us started, we should touch on it briefly, was it was basically someone talking about, and I'm gonna editorialize a little bit here, so like this is not exactly what they wrote, but it basically said like people get laid off, which is unfortunate, but then those people, it's almost like they have to write a hostage post, right? They've been laid off and they'd be like, today I've left my company, it was a great 5 years, I'm really excited about the future, and they like highlight a bunch of people. It's like, listen, most people do not feel that way after being, laid off. And it's like, you don't have to say anything. You know what I mean? You don't have to write a long post. Like I certainly don't have to write like a hostage letter out of there. You can just be like, you can just move on. So I don't know. I feel bad when I see those ones, I do feel like this seems like a little over the top. So that's another one that I feel like you don't have to send it, but if you truly want to, just do what you need to do.
See, that would be a good test case for LinkedIn as it is now, is that if you do get laid off and you're like, I'm excited to start the next step in my journey, my professional journey of whatever, and then like within like how long would it take for someone that's not a recruiter in your, as they would say, network to like hook you up with some new jobs, right? Because that's really like, that's also kind of the point of a post like that, is to basically be like, hey, I need a job. And to see if that kind of like kicks off other people who are actual individuals like sending things along to you. I don't know if that actually happens, but that would be a good, like, because there's all these like, layoffs going on for at the moment, in this rolling 2-year time window that we're in. There should be some setting in LinkedIn that's like, hey, anyone got a job for me? I might be laid off sometime in the future, right? And they're also like, there should be some LinkedIn thought leader, maybe a LinkedIn Live thing where they discuss how to stealthily look around for a job in public without it damaging your current job. That's the kind of utility that like LinkedIn could really help out with, because I feel like, maybe they would not show some of the stuff to people at your company, and they would show it to other people, right? Something like that. I don't know. But really, just maybe if I can give it my open API token, it can just find stuff that's useful. Now, there's a couple of other things I think we could mention briefly. I haven't read deeply into it, but I want to ask just a simple question of each of you, and then while you're answering it, maybe I'll think of it is, all right, so if the U.S. government breaks up Google, which component that gets broken up do you want to become the VP of marketing for? How about you go first, Brandon?
Well, if that's the case, I'm going to do my best to stay with the search, the massive search component, because that continues to be the cash machine. Even if they break it up, I still think there'll be like tons of money to go with that. So yeah, I'm going to stay with that. I'm going to let Matt go with Android. I'll be like, Matt, you're the open source guy. Go make. I'll be like, Matt, go make Andrew. Andrew, go make Android great, and let me know how it goes.
Well, so I mean, I guess they break up like Android, YouTube, search, apps. Do we put like maps and desktop and Google apps together?
In this alternate timeline, just they don't be too rational, because it's non-technical people breaking up a business. So they might.
You said YouTube. YouTube would be a good one to go on.
Yeah.
This is pretty standalone, and I think that's as strong as ever. Like I feel like YouTube TV and YouTube Classic, if you will, or I don't know.
I mean, I think YouTube has the opportunity to be like the monster that continues to slay like the Hulus and Netflixes, and that seems like a fun area to play in.
But and it makes money for the ads mostly. It's mostly so it's kind of a core.
Yeah. But if it's untethered from if it gets untethered from Google, like you
still make money from ads.
Yeah. But there's a whole lot of
like Android. I'd be worried about if someone's like, you got to go.
Oh no, I think Android.
Are you sure? Do I have to go? Can I work on something here? Are you sure you don't need someone on Maps? I think I would be begging to stay.
But Android, yeah, I'd probably still end up at Android, because that just seems like
good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just like once it's untethered from any revenue, you're like, this feels like I feel like this could not.
Well, then you just turn around and you sign like the sorts of stuff that they're getting broken up for, right? I mean,
I don't know.
If Apple can get 20 billion for the iPhone, Android can get 20 billion because there's 4 times as many Android phones as there are iPhones.
I don't know. I feel like it's almost like you're like at sea and you're like a little boat, but like you're in a massive like armada, and then they send your little boat off to sea by yourself. Like, I don't want to go. I don't want, because then you're like there's the iPhone out here. The iPhone Navy's gonna come kill us, right? Because it's like suddenly you don't have all that money, that free money from Google, and you're like, you got to build the phones.
Yeah, but
there's iPhones. I'm like, I'd be very worried.
Yeah, but they're also setting you up with like, here's a vast, huge ecosystem. Don't wreck it, right? I mean, because Android, as much as you want to make fun of it, it's like it is 80%, 90% of the phone market.
No, I totally agree, but heavily, I mean, almost exclusively subsidized through search. So once you take away the search, it's like, I don't know, like how are they going to?
Right. Well, what I'm saying is you turn around and you reestablish those search partnerships.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to I think because they're breaking you up, I think they're going to be like, no, you can't do this.
No, you open it up to the market. That's what I'm saying.
These are all
like I said, Matt is ready to go with Android. I wish him well. Good luck.
But I think like any good person applying for a job, you decided you wanted to apply for a different job, the CEO job. Whereas what I had on the table was VP of marketing. So now you still need the cash and things like that. But you got to imagine like what you do. Like, so I mean, as far as my answer, as y'all were going through that, I was thinking like, I think I would go with whatever the first thing I would fix is what I'm about to just do an example of, whatever they're calling it nowadays, Google Suite. First thing I would do is be like, we got to just stop changing the name of this damn thing, right? Like people don't know what to call it. Like, just give it a name. And then I think the next thing I'm going to do for the first year, I'm going to base the entire marketing campaign around the ability to download Markdown files from Google Docs. and what I'm going to suggest is that like we've kind of saturated the market for normals, but I guarantee you, if you go talk to programmers and other technical people, they're going to be, you know why I don't like using Google Docs? Because there's no Markdown support. It's very frustrating.
The first rule of marketing is don't serve the nerds. They're not buying stuff.
But this is what I'm saying is we're beyond
They're not
that.
paying.
It's true.
But the nerds are the one who take care of it, and they complain about it. So I think you've got.
It's not open source.
Now hold on. I'm the VP of marketing. Not everything I do has to contribute to revenue, right? Like a lot of what I'm trying to do here is like bring some new shine and polish, right?
Okay.
And bring some people over, right? And so I think if I can get some organic coverage from like a John Gruber, that we are like the best place to do Markdown writing and editing and exporting. I mean, I think
you make that Gruber an offer he can't refuse, and you get him on staff, and then you're like home of Markdown.
Wow,
yeah,
there you go.
That's right. That's right. We're gonna finally do a Markdown standard, and again, I think when it comes to like Docs and Excel and all that kind of stuff, like really, nothing's gonna happen in that market. It's like we in a good way. We've all got it. It's like there's not much exciting happening in the nuts and bolts market. That I know of. I apologize to nuts and bolts people if you're like you got no.
There's AI, man. You rub some AI in there.
Yeah, but so that means that we've got to find these little niches of people who are not yet using our technology, and we bring them over. Just incremental growth.
In the breakup, where does Gemini go? Where does AI go?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't know. That's a real question. Half with search, half with GCP. I don't know. That'd be an interesting one. So
yeah, I think we resolve a lot of issues, and we just sell Gemini to Intel, and we'll sort it out.
Now here's a boat anchor. Have fun.
now the second quick thing I wanted to go over, over here in Europe and also back in the States, we use Apple Pay all the time. It's great. It's there's a technology that like I remember when it first came out, I think everyone else was like, this is nuts, but you start using it and it's fine. It's good stuff, and it looks like finally our beloved HEB is accepting Apple Pay, but at one store in Dallas.
That's right. Only one store in Dallas. We can only hope.
The central market on Lovers Lane in Dallas. It looks like here. So, which I think is great. My if there's any listeners in Dallas, you should go there. pay for some groceries. Now, I think there's a little bit of wiggle room going on here with Central Market. That's not. I love Central Market, but that's not quite HEB, right? That's sort of like it's different thing going on there. However, it can count. So if some listener wants to go there and actually pay for something, maybe an avocado, a nice tech avocado or a grapefruit, one of those gigantic watermelons. Do they still sell those giant watermelons for like $2?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That's like 20 times cheaper than here in Amsterdam. But go buy a watermelon on Apple Pay. Send us a picture. That would be great. and then maybe we can put that in our annual review. We'll send a letter to the HEB and say congratulations, you accept Apple Pay. You should do it some more. This Christmas when I'm back in town, we could use it. Now, speaking of things that I could do when I'm back in town in Austin, is there any bureaucracy this week, Brandon?
There is. Following up from last week's episode, so someone we talked a little bit about south of the border on I-95, and someone posted a nice link here. How does south of the border keeps going after all of these years? Also in the Slack, it was speculated that it's just a front for money laundering, which I have to be honest is the most plausible example or explanation of why south of the border continues to go on. So appreciate that. Of course, if you're on I-95, make sure you stop, check it out, take some pictures. Also, Cote, this one's really for you. Someone posted in the Slack. Wasn't sure if they wanted to be called out, but they, if you will, they're the consumer of cables. So this, as your work as the VP of cables, here's what they've done for their family. And I'll read the quote here. He says, and this is all about USB-C coming into the world. It says, quote, meanwhile, my kids live in cable heaven and don't know it. Every charger is PD 30 watts with some PD 90 watts, strategically located at desks, 4 laptops, 3 cell phones, multiple other devices. Everything recharges via USB-C, headphones, video game, tablets, lamps, headlamp, bicycle lamp, wine opener, loudspeaker. I just refuse to buy any new device if it is rechargeable, but not USB-C. AA and AAA batteries are next. Power tools are exempt for now. So Cote, I think as the VP of cables, your work is done with this person. This person has bought into the USB-C lifestyle. And as a father, I'll reveal that he is a father. I think every father should be proud of this person. He's done all the work for all the people, and I for one commend him because I know for a fact no one in his family cares at all. So at least he went and did the work for them. So fantastic.
I think this is a great example of enterprise architectural governance on the home network in action, right? Like you've got some goals. We want simplification, which probably leads to standardization, maybe even some cost efficiency. Now, some people are like, that's not powerful. So like, sure, we can get some slightly more powerful things at the locations that you need on your desk. And then you've gone all the way to procurement and you're like, hey, procurement, if it doesn't have a USB-C port, we're not buying it.
It doesn't come in this house.
That's against policy. And then, of course, for next year, you've got your sights on some things. You're like, how many A's do I need in all these batteries? This is ridiculous. And then, of course, you've got your legacy industrial hardcore business, your power tools. And, you tried to get them to work, to stop building their own Kubernetes clusters and just use your standard. And it just like, you wanted to go have a good Christmas. And so you're just like, fuck it. If you're doing this hardcore stuff, I'm going to give you another year. You're exempt from now. You don't have to work under this. But yeah, I think that's the dream. That's the vision. One cord.
Well, I think he's achieved it. So good for him. Also, wanted to read a suggestion here from Michael Neal. And this is it's a pretty interesting one because we've talked a lot about cloud gaming, but this is, if you will, a very positive take on cloud gaming. So he says, quote, I want to suggest a recommendation for people to try. For $1 for 14 days, he's tried Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with cloud gaming, and he ran it on an Xbox app on a Samsung TV. Although I did look, it works on a bunch of other things as well. And he is curious to see about others who have a few consoles in their house to see if this is the future of consumer gaming. And he goes on to say, even first-person shooters were fun, including MS Flight Simulator as well. So I don't know. We've talked a lot about what was the thing Google had, Stadia, I think, for a while, yeah. And that died off. So this is the first time someone's come on and said, like, it works pretty well. I actually asked my son. I told him, I was like, hey, got to go try this. So I hope to get his review at some point. But I don't know. Have you done it, Matt? Have you played Xbox Game Pass Ultimate?
I'm old fashioned. I still just use PCs and consoles.
All right. Well, if you are someone that is into it, try out the gaming. And then what you can do is you can send your question or feedback to questions@softwaredefinedtalk.com. Tell us if it worked, tell us if it didn't, or you can just ask some question. And of course, if you want a sticker, just send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world.
Well, there's a lot of conferences to go through this episode. First of all, we've been telling you about DevOps Days Birmingham, August 19th to 21st for a while. So soon we won't be telling you because it will be done. But, there's still a chance to go check that out. There's also, at the end of this month, there's Spring One and VMware Explore US in Las Vegas, August 26th to 29th. I've been working with people, not as much as I usually do, but on a lot of the Spring One stuff. And, it'll be fun. You should go check it out. Also, if you don't want to attend in person, you can watch the... I think they're calling it the Spring Spotlight. I forget, but you can watch the Spring One stuff online for free if you just go to spring1.io and you can see to register. And there's all sorts of stuff you can watch online for free with that. There's also DevOps Days Antwerp, September 4th and 5th, where I'll be giving a short talk. And then Cloud Foundry Day EU in, pardon my pronunciation, Karlsruhe in Germany. I don't know, October 9th. And there's a 20% off code you can use if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/480. However, the tickets are only 50 euros. So I don't know if you really need a deduction, but maybe you could use that to buy a pretzel in the airport or something. There's also Civo Navigate Europe in Berlin, September 10th to 11th. And then there's SRE Day London, which is September 19th and 20th, where I'll be speaking. And there's also a 20% off discount code if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/480 for that. Now, when you're enjoying that 20% that you saved on 50 euros, Brandon, what are you going to be recommending to people?
Well, the recommendation this week I have is, again, another service that I think is great. I'm not sure how people make money on it, or in this case, Google, but I like it. So it's Google Colab, which is just their online hosted version of Jupyter Notebooks. It's fantastic. I think it's the ideal way to play around with Python. It even has, I had to do some API stuff. It even has a nice little place where you can put all your keys so it's not in your code. So you can, follow best practices with security. So I was like, this is just a great little service. So if you want to play around with Python, I've just been using the free stuff. You can install packages on it. It's real easy, and it just sort of installs and boots you up a nice little instance. So, it's one of these things. I think it's too good to be true. I think at any moment they're going to shut it down or turn off the free tier. But until then, enjoy the Google Colab. I guess just download your Python scripts in case they take it all away from us. It's really good.
I think when Google gets broken up, there's just going to be some person who's freelances between the 5 breakup companies, just the reaper of ex-Google products.
Oh, that would be brutal. Yeah, brutal. Yeah, so check out Google Colab.
Well, maybe you could be the VP of marketing for that Google breakup thing, and instead of being the VP of marketing, you can just switch over to being the chief DevRel person, and just talk. You can talk about how much you like it, and that would be fun. That'd be great if there were evangelist types for things like that, and their whole thing was I'm just screwing around with it, let's not for professional use. How about yourself, Matt Ray? What do you have to recommend?
Well, I've started a new role. I guess I need to splash that up on LinkedIn more, but my new work laptop is very locked down, and I don't really previously I kind of blurred the lines between work and personal laptops, but this one is definitely work only. So I'm continuing to use my personal laptop on the side, and so I'm using Mac OS's Universal Control. If you've used Synergy before, what this allows you to do is use one keyboard and share it across multiple computers, including iPads, and if you're so inclined. But so I've got my personal laptop set up next to my work laptop, and both laptops also have an external display. And so I have 4 screens, 2 machines, and I can use one keyboard and mouse across them. And it actually works really well. You have to keep Bluetooth and Wi-Fi on, even if you're on a hard link. But I definitely recommend it once you get it working.
And is that just so you can go see if you can go to a meeting, or if you have like a doctor's appointment you need to go to? Like what?
Yeah. I mean, things like the software defined Slack stays on the
Uh-huh.
personal laptop, right?
Yeah.
While the work Slack stays on the work laptop.
Yeah. I almost feel like, so I think through this scenario a lot, the mixing your personal and your corporate computing. And I almost feel like your corporate computing becomes a subset of your overall computing experience, the smaller set of it. And like you would spend most of your time on your own personal computer doing things, and every now and then, like when you got to go file a Jira ticket or something, you just move your cursor over to the corporate one,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Well, I mean, part of the investment was I got a headphone switcher, so I have like a little knob that just switches back and forth, like which laptop's providing the audio.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, the personal has Slack and email and calendar,
Uh-huh.
and then the work gets the big screen and has all the work stuff I got to do.
Yeah. What one machine is like useful things, and the other one is like workday.
and Google Suite. Yeah.
Oh yes, and Google Suite. All right. Well, my recommendation. I was in London this weekend for a short little trip, which was fun, and I finally went to the store that I don't know how you come across these things, but there's sort of like the stationary nerd and office supply nerd world, kind of
Yeah.
like Field Notes people kind of fall into this and other things. And there's this London store called Present and Correct, and they have a great online presence as well. You can order things, but they're basically like, I don't know, maybe what was that Netflix? No, not that Apple TV show about Severance. It's like if you were to imagine the office supply closet at Severance, that's what Present and Correct is. And so you can go in there, and they've got all this fun little stuff. And so I went there in person finally, and I got they have all that old school stuff. And what I got, maybe I'll take a picture of this for the show notes. But first I got a notebook. But then also, let's see. They have things like this. Like I'm gonna take this out. If you're watching the stream, you could see. But I got these cool old school scissors.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
They're not like they're not like crappy plastic ones. And they even have a little monogram that says P and C. So they've got stuff like the kind of scissors I used to use in fourth grade, which I'm trying to keep these as a secret from my kids, because once they know about them, I will never see them again.
That's like my good office pins. Yeah.
And then the other nice thing is they gave me these scissors in an old school envelope, like the kind that you have like the little string that you put around. So it was like a hipster's paradise in there. But if you ever have the chance to go to Present and Correct in London, it's right next to the London Review of Books bookstore, and in the what do you call that area that's in the middle of buildings that comes in Roman architecture? Yes, and there's an atrium in the back where there's a wine bar that is nice as well. So speaking of things that are nice, if you want to see links to all the things we mentioned and links to many things we didn't mention, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/480, because this has been episode 480 of the Software Defined Talk podcast, which you just listened to. It's great if you recommend this to other people. If you force it on them, whether they want it or not, subscribe to it, they'll probably grow to like it. Just like anything that you're forced to listen to after a while, every now and then I have to listen to murder podcasts that my wife listens to, and they can be charming. They're interesting.
Do you listen to them, like all of them, or you just drop in like every fifth episode and you're like, what happened?
Yeah, so sometimes she's up late at night, like listening to them, and I'll wake up and I'll hear them. There's like, I've spent a lot of time over the years, you can imagine, just categorizing and thinking about the murder podcast format. I think I might have even mentioned this, but someone discovered it must have been some like summer interns at a management consulting thing. They discovered like the perfect moneymaker for murder podcast things, where there's all this public domain, like courtroom and interview tape out there. So you don't have to pay anything for it. And all you do is you just stick that in an RSS feed. Brilliant, right? Like, and at least one person on this world listens to it. Yeah. And it's also a great product because what I've heard from this one listener, this one user study that I've done in this format is this person will say, wow, these last 5 episodes were really boring. And then so I say, and so you listen to them? Yes. So, it doesn't even have to be good content. Don't have to pay for it. Infinite distribution doesn't even have to be good. So however, the opposite of that is something that is good, which is this podcast, which has been Software Defined Talk. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, good to you. I mean, you didn't have to wait 480 episodes into this podcast to tell us how we could have made money. We could have done that a long time ago.
I know.
It's like, geez,
the contributed shitification of podcasts.
Like, come on, man. So
like, little AI over it, some voiceover. And this last episode, this happened.
I think maybe what we could do is we'll do some filler episodes during vacation time where we get an AI just to read the updates in my LinkedIn feed.
Oh, that'd be funny.
Happy to start my next journey. Thanks for all the friends.
That would be interesting. All right, Cote. Well, listen, people have probably been waiting and they thought maybe we forgot, but we didn't forget. We'll try to keep it brief. We'll see how that goes. Cote, people want to know from last week when we left our hero. This is our murder podcast, is a plumbing podcast. When we left our hero, you had said that you had taken all of the right steps to check the plumbing was indeed a plumber's problem, and that's where we signed off. So that was the cliffhanger. So now, for everyone that was waiting, what actually happened when the plumber came?
Well, so it's very nice. Is a very nice fellow. The plumber came in and he brought his like professional electro snake thing. I don't know what it is. Like he brought in a little dry wet vac, of course. Mm-hmm. But then there's some device that's like, it's got a long cord.
Yeah.
It's like, and it just goes in there and he's messing around doing this, that, and the other. And then, I don't know, maybe in about 30 minutes, he comes over and he says, I unclogged it. And, he said it was about 2 meters in, which means it was like in the kitchen area.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he even like, I asked him what it was and he just kind of like showed me what it was. And I reached into the wet dry vac and it was just like, stuff. It was just sediment and gunk. And so I think, it might have been one of those 1 in a million coincidences where there just happened to be major plumbing work for the building. And then right that same day, the kitchen sink got clogged. Or not the sink, but the thing got clogged.
Maybe it knocked it loose or something.
I was gonna say there seems like there's some correlation.
There are no coincidences.
Although that seems like a pretty simple fix. Like that's
and it wasn't something that you were that you had overlooked.
Yeah. Yes. I did all
this required a professional.
Yeah. Now I think there is like that whole experience. It made me. There's 2 things that I've taken away from it. One, I like to use everyday experiences to try to explain enterprise software and infrastructure concerns. And one of the major problems you have if you're trying to sell enterprise software is people don't want to give you money. They're just like, this is so expensive.
Can't confirm. Yes.
I was thinking like, especially if you're in the infrastructure business, like you encounter this problem because if your stuff works, because people like a squeaky wheel doesn't get paid a premium, right? Like, or I shouldn't say the opposite of that. A well-functioning machine doesn't command like a high margin because people just take it for granted. And I was thinking like, well, this is a good example when your sink gets clogged is like, you see your water bill all the time and you're like upset that you're paying for it. And then like, you don't have water anymore. And you're like, could I please pay more?
Right? I'm paying so much.
Right. And so like until your system breaks, you don't really you can't really place value on how much you're paying for it. And you just think you're overpaying. Now, the other thing was like, I bet if you let like some sort of like, I don't know, cloud infrastructure, someone like a Matt Ray maybe, but a little more into the brilliance of their own ideas and kind of like,
really because I have no brilliant ideas, but yes, let's go.
If they were to do the plumbing of their house, I bet it would be amazingly entertaining to look at, right?
Yes.
Because there are so many aspects of plumbing that when you try to go interact with it, you're like, what is going on here?
Yes.
Why is this so difficult? Why do I have to be at this
Oh,
contorted angle?
I feel so called out. So we started this new BBC show from a few years ago called Ghosts, where this couple inherits this old house. It's all run down and it's just haunted, and and apparently she starts seeing ghosts. It's a comedy. It's like a Beetlejuice kind of thing. And my first thought is they're like going in this house, like, oh man, I guess you'd start with the plumbing and the electrical.
Yeah, like
you got to get that stuff sorted, right?
But similarly, I've been thinking a lot in these old houses. At some point, you just got to get that kind of what do you call the molding? That's
ground molding.
Yeah, like at some point you've got to get that hollow stuff and just run hollow ground molding along the whole house.
Absolutely.
So you can just like pull cords wherever you want.
Amen.
Right?
That should be
and like
100%. Yes.
And why that isn't the standard for like sure, maybe what you would buy nowadays is this kind of cheapy plastic stuff that'll fall apart. But if that was installed in every house, it would probably be like industrial strength and it would be normal. Like that should just be like what's normal in houses.
So you would just run all your cables behind the crown molding?
Yeah, like just basically put a little like a conduit inside.
I hadn't really thought about that as like an old house solution, but yeah,
and then also you would be able to just like install new plugs whenever you wanted.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah.
And then you extend that the logical not conclusion, but the logical cul-de-sac or end of that is you just have sort of like it's all in the ceiling, like in a corporate setting with the little ceilings. And I was thinking
drop ceilings.
Yeah. So I don't know, that just seems like that should be in some building code. Just put that stuff there. Be so useful because there's only one answer to the question: are there ever enough plug outlets in any room? No,
always
never.
Always.
Is the Ethernet port always where you want it to be? No, there isn't even one. Like it's just like I'd love to be able to run my own cables easily.
All right, well, that's the end of our murder podcast. I think what we learned here was ultimately, I'm going to summarize it. Like the plumbing, well, it's just like the neighbor did it. It was the scary neighbor. It was the obvious person that committed the murder, and then of course, practical home tips. So I want to thank everybody that watched the stream today. I appreciate it. We were on regular time. We should probably be on regular time for the next few weeks. So definitely check out the stream. Come back.
Check my LinkedIn next week, sales kickoff.
That's right. And we'll look forward to Matt's sales kickoff. And until then, we'll talk to you